now. It's time to speak to our panellists today. They are Times columnist Matthew Parris, who's in the studio with us. Good morning.
Morning.
And Annabel Denham, who is Director of Communications at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Good morning, Annabel.
Good morning.
Let's start then with military aid. Britain is to escalate its military aid to Ukraine by sending state-of-the-art anti-aircraft missile systems. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has been on the programme. He said that the system was within the definition of a defensive weapon, although analysts said that it marked a step change in terms of capability for Ukraine. Matthew, are you clear about what is a defensive weapon and what is an offensive weapon? We are sending a lot of stuff, not just us, other countries, to Ukraine to help them defend their country. But Polish jets, that was a step too far.
I'm not clear. Nobody is clear because you can't be clear because there is no clear distinction between defence and attack. Sometimes attack is the only way of defending yourself. Sometimes you can defend yourself in a way which is irresponsibly aggressive. So you just have to draw a fairly arbitrary line. And I agree, what Ben Wallace has done pushes fairly close to the limit of what you would call defence. On the other hand, sending attack aircraft is definitely over that limit. So we just have to fudge it.
We certainly do. We'll come back to this in a second, but I want to break away just to speak to Dmytro Gurin, who is a Ukrainian MP. He comes from Mariupol, which we're talking about a lot. It's on the front cover of most papers today because the authorities there this morning have confirmed that 3 people, including a child, died in the Russian attack on the city's maternity hospital yesterday. Dmytro, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you for asking to join you.
What have you heard from people in Mariupol this morning about what happened yesterday and the aftermath, really?
The same story as the day before yesterday and the day before yesterday. It's carpet bombing all the city. And yesterday, the maternity hospital was hit and my university were destroyed. Several days ago, my school was destroyed, and also several days ago, the central hospital was destroyed. We just didn't have brilliant photos like for maternity hospital, and that's why all the world didn't discuss several days ago that we don't have emergency unit in the 500,000 city anymore, and we cannot operate the difficult cases anymore. So the siege, this medieval siege continues. People are closed in this mousetrap, 350,000 people. They don't have heating, water, electricity, gas, mobile network, nothing. There are only several spots in the city where mobile network were stored, and they melt snow to have water. They have food storage for 3 to 4 days already, and then hunger will break out. And they no supplies of medicine, no supplies of food, of water, no humanitarian truck caravans. Nothing. They are just preparing food on the open fire near the buildings after cutting the trees near the buildings.
Now, I know that you are probably not interested in what the Russians have to say about this, but we'll put it out there anyway. They've said that we don't target civilians, and that if this hospital was targeted, it would have been because Ukrainian fighters were taking up firing positions from the hospital. Are there any Ukrainian fighters within that hospital?
What do you think yourself about it? Sorry, it's not funny situation that all we have the war in our country, but you really ask me if we had the Ukrainian army positions in the maternity hospital. No, we didn't.
But that is something clearly that will continue, depending on the targets. You know, this is a watershed moment, isn't it, a maternity hospital? Depending on the targets now, presumably you expect Russia to mount that kind of argument, that kind of defense each time.
Look, they have now 350,000 people as hostages. And that is their goal. Because when they invaded 2 weeks ago, they thought we will not resist. And we did. And we will resist until the last man, because 8 of 10 men in the country are ready to fight fight armed. And they understood that they cannot beat us on the battlefield, because not only army resists, but all the population. And they decided, okay, let's kill you all. And they put a siege around Mariupol, and they're waiting while hunger will begin. That's their real goal. And my parents didn't leave Mariupol because they couldn't fit in their heads that Russian will bomb Russian. Because Mariupol is 90% of people there, 95%. It's Russian-speaking city. It's not Ukrainian-speaking city. And they couldn't believe, all the Mariupol, they couldn't believe it can happen like this. And that's now, it's not just a war, army against army, as it was like a week ago. We have totally new situation. And when you, all of the European and America, European countries and USA and NATO countries at all, when you helped us with the weapons, and we really appreciate it, and we help you, we thank you for this. But now we have a different situation. It's a war crimes. It's a carpet bombing of civilians, and and we can have in 10 days we can have a real hunger in Europe. There are 1,200 people died in Mariupol already, and bodies are laying on the streets. That's reality. It's like Bosnia in the 90s, and they already started to dig the mass graves. I'm not joking now.
No, I'm sure you're not, Dmitry. What I want to ask you now, I suppose, is that President Zelensky said, said again that this is a war crime. Millions of people could die. We need this no-fly zone. You know what the West has said so far about no-fly zone. We can't do that because that will ratchet everything up, and then Vladimir Putin will point his missiles at us. The Polish jets, that was going to happen, and then America decided that they couldn't be involved in that. What do you say to people who make those decisions?
I would say that stop being delusional. The World War III, it started already. And now it's the only question is when you join on the right side. Because now is the situation when you can join and you can have war on Ukrainian territory. And a little bit later, you will have this war on your territory. Because people who bomb with barrel bombs maternity hospitals, trust me, people do it or don't. And if people do it, that's not the point for them. Where is this hospital? In Mariupol or in Poznan, or in Warsaw, or in Riga? And you just will have this war on your territory. So close the goddamn sky. And if you cannot do it all over the Ukraine, help us to do it over humanitarian corridors to get people out of these mousetraps. Because it's not the question of the war anymore. It's a question of humanity, of the hunger in the center of Europe, of just killing people, because we have evidences from occupied territories where is no any mobile network, any mobile phones working, and any internet, that Russian soldiers started killing people for fun once again. And they're destroying the district where I lived 15 years with no any military infrastructure. And military infrastructure never were in this district. They're just bombing it, carpet bombing, and it's not, you cannot rebuild it, just build from zero now. It's not possible to recover this district. And they do it also for fun already.
Dmytro, thank you very much for talking to us. It's good to hear from an MP, Ukrainian MP, about your perspective on the decisions that have been made, excuse me, over the last couple of days. So thank you for your time. That is Dmytro Gurin. He is a Ukrainian MP who comes from Mariupol.
Close the goddamn sky, he said very, very clearly. Just a quick bit of breaking news before we go on. Britain has said now that it's imposed asset freezes on Russian businessmen. Check out these names: Roman Abramovich, Igor Sechin, Oleg Deripaska and Dmitry Lebedev, after they were added to the country's sanctions list. We'll get you more information on what that might entail as the morning proceeds. We're talking over the news of the day, which is, of course, Ukraine, with Matthew Parris and Annabel Denham. Annabel, just hearing there from a Ukrainian MP very clearly saying World War III has begun. We are very, very keen, for very understandable reasons, in NATO countries not to escalate this. But ultimately, there's an argument that's levied all the time on this program by Ukrainians that Putin will continue to escalate, and at some point we have to do something that checks him. Do you agree with that as an argument?
Well, I certainly agree that Putin is going to continue regardless, but I think that there are limits to how far the Western alliance is willing to go in this conflict, and probably we're very close to that now by sending in these state-of-the-art anti-aircraft missile systems. There's that, and of course there's all the training that we were doing before it all kicked off. What would be an escalation would be sending, say, advanced systems that require personnel to operate and the people to do that, but I don't see that happening, and we may not even have enough to spare anyway, because our military is now so diminished. Of course, we heard there that plea for a no-fly zone, but I think there's absolutely zero chance of that happening, because even if you believe there's only a 1% chance it might lead to a nuclear showdown, you're not going to take those odds when the downside is the end of civilization. I know that Daniel Finkelstein cast doubt on that mutually assured destruction line in an article for the Times this week, but I don't believe that you would even take 1,000 to 1 odds there.
It's an interesting point, that Matthew, but I guess the argument that we've heard from a couple of American generals saying this, that if you take any direct action off the table, you are effectively saying to Putin, there's only so far we can go. And the point of a nuclear deterrent is it stops the other side using nuclear weapons. It's now become a way of stopping us using conventional weapons against Putin. And that's a problem, because he's there in Ukraine now, and who knows where he might push next.
Well, you used the phrase take off the table. I don't think we take anything off the table, but there are things that, for the moment anyway, we're not going to do. In the extreme, a nuclear attack might be followed by a nuclear response, but we are not at the moment threatening a nuclear response. With a no-fly zone, you just have to look how great is the advantage that it would confer, and how great the danger of then having NATO fighter jets engaging with Russian fighter jets over Ukraine, a very significant escalation. This is a moment, I think, when, although I found what Dmytro said very moving, you can't just go by what people who are right in the middle of it all say. There's a case for carefully holding back.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. But stay there, both of you. We'll come back to you with some further conversations about the refugee crisis, not least because that's heading in our direction. And our response to that has led to much criticism of the government. We'll see if that's justified or not in your view. It's 9:20. This is Times Radio Breakfast.